Hello, welcome to the Physics channel. I will be your host. Have you ever been in a pool and wondered or noticed that you can float easier when you're holding your breath? This concept can be explained through physics and fish, so keep listening to learn more.
So the first step to understanding fish buoyancy is to understand the swim bladder. So the swim bladder is a sac in the fish that can be filled with oxygen, and it can expand, or when oxygen is let out, it contracts. And so basically there are two types of swim bladders. There's the open swim bladder and the closed swim bladder. So if you've ever seen a fish surface to the water and open its mouth, you may have thought that it was taking a big breath of air. But in reality, the fish was filling its swim bladder. This would be an example of an open swim bladder because there's a direct line from the mouth of the fish to the swim bladder. There's also closed swim bladders, which is when fish adjust the oxygen in the swim bladder by releasing oxygen into nearby blood vessels or taking oxygen out of those blood vessels. Regardless of whether a swim bladder is open or closed, when the swim bladder is filled with oxygen and expands, the volume of the fish increases while the mass stays the same. Because the mass is constant, the fish will experience the same gravitational force, but because the volume is increasing, the fish displaces more water and experiences a larger buoyant force.
That's really interesting, Grace. But what is buoyancy?
So buoyancy is an upward force in a fluid opposite of gravity, and this is caused because the deeper you go in a fluid, the more pressure there is, and the fluid is always going to want to move from the high pressure at the bottom to the low pressure at the top. So this creates kind of upward motion and upward force, which is the buoyant force. Relating this concept of buoyancy to fish and their swim bladders, you can see in this diagram that the fish's swim bladder is expanded, which causes the buoyant force of the fish to increase, exceeding the force of gravity, causing the fish to rise. And in this diagram, the fish has released air, causing its swim bladder to decrease in size. This causes the buoyant force to decrease, making the force of gravity exceed the buoyant force, causing this fish to sink.
Now we are joined by Leah, who's going to share with us her emotional experience with fish and their swim bladders.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Could you please tell us about your late beloved fish, Mushu?
Mushu was the best fish I've ever had, never known, except for my current fish, Sushi. But he was beautiful. He had the prettiest red fins. They just went boop, 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 boop when he swam. I miss him so much every day.
It's very hard.
I knew it was all over when his swim bladder stopped functioning. He would try to swim and he would struggle, but because his swim bladder wasn't working, he didn't have the buoyant force enough to get to the top of the tank.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
It's all right.
Could you please tell us about your current fish, Sushi?
Of course.
Yes.
I'm so blessed to have my little Sushi and his fully functioning swim bladder. When Sushi wants to go up, he goes up. And
Amazing.
then poor little Mushu was stuck at the bottom forever.
After that heartfelt story, we'll now have a demonstration of how swim bladders function.
So in this case, the mass attached to the bottom represents the mass of the fish, because that is constant, and there will always be a gravitational force acting downwards and on that. And then the balloon represents the swim bladder, and so if I poke a hole in the balloon as air goes out of the balloon, that's like the fish letting oxygen out of its swim bladder, which decreases its volume, which decreases its buoyant force, and allows the fish to descend.
Buoyancy, the upward force in fluids, and its real-world application in fish and their swim bladders. Hopefully now you know why it's easier to float while you're holding your breath, and you can see all the applications of physics in nature and the